Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans Associate Program Information Session. My name is Jennifer Lemonnier, and I'm one of the Associate Directors in the Office of Career Services. As many of you know, UL Lafayette is the official higher education partner of the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans. As part of this partnership, we are bringing this unique and exclusive student career experience to you today ahead of time. We know many of you will be applying for the associate program positions, and we wanted to give you an inside look at the program and the competitive application process, some details there. We will post the associate program job opportunities in Handshake once they are available, and we will send email notification to upcoming graduates. Please be ready to apply as soon as you see these associate positions posted, as they may have quick deadlines to return that application. Thank you to our students for taking the time to be with us, and thank you to our New Orleans Saints and Pelicans staff who have joined us to share their expertise with us today. And before we get started, I wanted to provide a few tips and guidelines for how this seminar will run. You are welcome and encouraged to enable your video for the meeting. Questions are encouraged and will be moderated through the chat box when you are in the main room. And like Leslie said, please keep it on your mic on mute until you're ready to, we're opening it up to discussion. And we do thank you for participating. So at this time, I would like to introduce Courtney Boyd, who is the Partnership Marketing Manager with the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans. And with her today is also Lindley Fennelson, if I said that correct. And she's going to tell us about her position as well and be answering many of the questions that you'll have today. So I'll turn over the mic to start with Courtney. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. And hello, I see some familiar faces and names. So excited to see those that have been with us for the past few years. I just want to say thank you for being here and excited to continue this partnership with UL. And I will pass it over to Lindley to really be the star of the show today.
And I would like to share my screen, but when I just click share screen, it says that I need host permission.
So Leslie will work on that.
Okay, that worked. Let me just pull this up here. And can everyone see my screen? Awesome. Well, my name is Lindley Fennelson. I oversee talent acquisition and retention for the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans. I've been with the organization for only about 5 months now, but I have a background in recruiting, and I got my start with a tech company out in Kansas City. And then I went on to work for the NFL league office up in Manhattan. And then I moved down here during COVID and have been, like I said, with the Saints and Pelicans for about 5 months now. So really excited to be a part of the organization, and my function really oversees hiring, onboarding, the new hire experience, as well as our associate program as a whole. So I'm here to just share some insider information about the program, talk to you about the different openings that we have, and then also provide some resume tips, interview tips, and things that can help get your application noticed. So for those who are not familiar, our program, the associate program, is a 1-year paid internship that's really focused on developing skills that are needed in the sports industry. It's a full-time position, so you'd be working 40 hours a week, and a lot of the opportunities also work game nights, so there is opportunity for overtime as well. We target recent college graduates, and so while our main focus is going to be May 2022 graduates, we are open to other years of graduation, whether that be 2021 or 2020. So don't feel like you can't apply if you've graduated in December or are a non-traditional student. All of our positions are on site at the Saints and Pelicans training facility in Metairie. So at this time, there are no remote opportunities for the associate program. And the dates for the upcoming program, June 6th, 2022 through June 2nd, 2023. So coming up here in just a couple of months. I'm sure it'll be here before we know it. The main goals of our program are, it's really to provide hands-on real-life experience and to really help develop our associates into what we look for in full-time employees. So we want to provide an in-depth experience and look into the sports industry, even if you don't end up working in the field that your associateship is in. We want to provide networking opportunities both internally with the Saints and Pelicans, but also in the New Orleans area and the sports industry, whether that be with other leagues, with the NBA league office or NFL league office. Our goal is to really help you connect and build those networks within the industry. And then our main goal of the program and why it's really here is to place associates into a full-time position once the 1 year is up. So like I said, we really want to develop and help you find and learn skills that are what we look for in full-time employees and help you make that transition into a full-time position, whether that be with us if we have an opening at the end of your 1 year, or if that's with another team. We can help network and help get you in touch with hiring managers at other teams or leagues. Really, our goal is just to help you transition into a full-time position within the sports industry. So that's the main focus of our program. A little bit about each of the opportunities that we have coming up, and this is not the exact full list of what we'll have coming up for June, but this gives you a good idea of the types of roles that we offer. The first is inside sales. This position is basically cold calling. You're making outbound calls, upwards of 100 calls per day to sell tickets, whether that be single game tickets, or connecting with group sales to work on a group project, something like that. So they look for people that are really motivated, maybe a little bit competitive, and have an interest in sports marketing, business, or sales. And again, they're on the phone all day long. So you have to be someone that enjoys interacting with others, and that is not afraid of taking chances and picking up the phone and calling people. So they look for really enthusiastic, energetic, driven individuals. And they do earn commission. So that's one thing that's unique about inside sales. In addition to the regular rate of pay for the program, they do get incentives for tickets. So that's some motivation there for you. Group sales, again, that is focused on selling, but not necessarily the same cold calling that inside sales is doing. Group sales is really focused on working with different organizations that are maybe bringing a group of employees in. So it's more helping with coordination of large groups that are coming to one of our events. Of course, there is still the selling aspect. So definitely need someone who's energetic and driven and has easy conversations with individuals. And again, they're looking for someone who has maybe a major in sports marketing, communications, business administration, or something of that nature. Ticket operations is behind the scenes of all of the tickets. So they are the ones that are actually building our events in the ticketing platform like SeatGeek. They're the ones who are helping print the tickets and making sure that all of the tickets are at will call for the day of the event. So that position requires strong attention to detail and really meticulous organization. So they're looking for someone really with a business mind, or someone who's interested in the sports industry, but maybe not sure what area. So those first three positions that I mentioned, those are all really great ways to get your start in our organization. A lot of our directors and senior directors actually started in inside sales and have moved their way up through the organization. So it's a really great way to get your foot in the door and kind of make a good impression. But ticketing is really kind of the heart of our operation. And obviously you need tickets to go to games. And so, like I said, that's a great way to really get your foot in the door and be exposed to the industry as a whole. Next up are season ticket services associates. Those are basically customer service representatives for our season ticket holders. These people are on the phone pretty much all day as well. They're taking inbound calls. So season ticket holders that are calling to process payment or to transfer tickets over to the next owner of the season ticket holder. And so that person would be on the phone. Again, they're looking for someone who can have natural conversation, good problem solving skills, things like that. Business intelligence is our version of data and analytics. So this associate would be responsible for analyzing things like ticket sales or fan engagement, working on different projects that take surveys that we send out to our fans for feedback, and just kind of analyzing trends of where we are with ticket sales and how we can increase revenue and profitability. Game operations is exactly what it sounds like. overseeing the operations of the game and other things like training camp, and just the physical kind of setting up and breaking down of the game on site at the arenas. Social media, I'm sure everyone is familiar with what a social media associate would do, but they are the ones that are helping run our Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. They'd be responding to messages, like direct messages that come to those accounts. They would also be helping come up with ideas for content for those accounts. So not necessarily actually creating the content, but helping conceptualize those ideas. Digital media is also overseeing some of the social media aspects, but also coming up with different content in the digital space, whether that be TV, the digital signage within the stadium and arena, things like that. So both of those positions would be looking for someone with a communications or marketing background or business, something along those lines for a major. Video production would be overseeing editing, cutting of video footage, helping to create short films that would be played during games, things like that. So they'd be looking for someone that has an interest, of course, in the film industry and perhaps a background in filmography or mass communications. And graphic design, they would be looking for someone who is a graphic designer, a recent graduate in graphic design, and they would be helping to create images for social media, print, different internal promotions, or t-shirts, things like that. Game experience is the people who make the games fun and exciting. So they are working alongside our entertainment teams, whether that be dance team or the mascot, or hosting contests throughout the game. So if you went to the Pelicans game last week, you would have received a t-shirt. They're the ones who kind of plan those types of events. So that position, they're really looking for someone that's super enthusiastic, that's really passionate about providing a great customer experience, and also someone who is really interested in the sports industry, of course, and making those games the best that they can be. And then corporate partnerships, where Courtney is, our associates there would be assisting with overseeing the partnerships just like Courtney does. So they would be supporting her in whatever she needs, whether it be planning different activities such as this one, and just maintaining the partnerships that we have with existing corporate partnerships. And that background would be something along the lines of business, marketing, sports marketing, communications, things like that. So that was very long-winded, but that's a little bit of an overview about all of the different opportunities that we have. And again, this is not the full list. We may have a couple of others. And usually each department has multiple openings within these positions. So we should have about, I would say, 30 openings for the June class. So our interview process is pretty straightforward. We are anticipating the applications to be open on March 7th, so that's another 2 weeks. We typically keep the positions open for about 2 to 3 weeks, just depending on how many applicants we get. You can imagine that we receive a lot of applications. For example, the social media coordinator position that we had open last week, we got 400 applications in 2 weeks. So it just kind of depends on the number of applicants that we're getting for a given role, but usually we leave positions open for about 2 to 3 weeks. So that gives you pretty much all of March to make sure that you get your application in. After the applications are submitted, our hiring managers go through and screen every single resume by hand, a real human looking at your application. We don't use an application tracking system that screens keywords or anything like that. It's actually one of us reviewing your resume. So after that, we would narrow down our top 10 to 12 candidates and do a first round phone interview. That's usually with the hiring manager. I might be helping out with some of those just based on the number of applicants that we get. But that first round is really all just trying to get to know you and your background. So in that, just be prepared to talk about yourself, really your education, your work experience, different extracurricular activities that you participate in, things like that. The second round of interviews, it varies by department, but typically that would be a WebEx video call. usually with 2 to 3 other people from the department. And that one is really, again, just to kind of get to know you and your background, but would also have a few more technical questions in that. And by that, I mean, if the position uses certain software or requires certain technical skills, or more situational type of questions would be asked during that phase of the interview. And then the third and final round, again, it varies by the department, but typically it would be a video call with the vice president of that department. And again, that's really just so they can get to know you, ask a few more of the higher level questions, make sure they're, making sure that the right person is filling the role. And then after that, that would be the point of an offer. So our goal is to have all of the offers extended by the end of April. So again, the applications will open March 7th. We'll probably give you all of March to apply, and then the interview process will really be during all of April. Again, this is targeting a June 6th start date. So my tips for the actual application process, and this first one I'm sure sounds ridiculous, but make sure that your application is fully complete. There are a couple of open text boxes on our application, and if you leave something blank on there, we often skip over the application. So there is a questionnaire section that asks why you want to work for the Saints and Pelicans, and me personally, that is where I go first to look at every application. I want to see what people are writing there. And if they leave it blank, I typically skip right over that application and I'll come back to it if I have time. But it's really important that you fill in all boxes on the application. And I know it sounds silly, but you would not imagine how many people leave applications blank. So again, my pro tip there is write something compelling in that box. If you have a history with our organization, or if you attended a game when you were a little kid and it sparked your interest in the sports industry and that's why you want to work in sports, put that in that box, because I look for, do they have a connection to our team personally? Do they have a connection to New Orleans, or do they have some sort of unique experience or passion for sports that really, makes them stand out from other applicants? So that's my biggest piece of advice there. When you do apply, make sure that you put in the where you found out about the position. If you mark referral and then put the UL partnership, just so we know that you're applying as part of our partnership. And that will make sure that I flag your application for the hiring managers and for myself. And then make sure that you include a cover letter and a resume, and make sure that they are both in a PDF format. There's nothing worse than if you upload a text file and it gets all distorted and then we can't see your resume as it's supposed to be. So make sure that you include those both as PDF attachments. Again, these are my personal resume tips. Make sure that you clearly list your name and contact information at the top. Make sure that it's really straightforward to see it. Include your LinkedIn link if you've got one. And if you don't have one, I do recommend creating one. And also make sure that you use a Gmail account. You can use your student email address as well, but just moving forward as you leave school and enter the working world, it is good to have a pretty straightforward Gmail or Yahoo account, or something that is very clear, your name, and maybe a couple of numbers if you need it. My personal preference for a resume format, and again, this is just my personal preference, it's not good or bad one way or the other, I spend all day looking at resumes, and so this is what has made it much easier for me, is if you have your education listed at the top, or if you want to start with an objective or a personal statement, you can put that first, and then your education, year of graduation, make sure that I can see it nice and bold, and then move into your work experience. If you don't have a lot of work experience, make sure that you list volunteer or extracurricular activities that you might be a part of. If you're part of a sports team and you're the treasurer for that sports team, list that, tell me about that. Just make sure that you fill your resume. Include any internship experience, of course, that you might have, and just add, as much as you can that would show me about who you are and what you do. Make sure that the dates are really clear and concise on one side. I feel like these are all somewhat straightforward things, but again, sometimes we get resumes that I have to spend a couple of minutes looking to figure out what their current job title is. And again, if we're getting 400 applications for a position, you want yours to be the one that really stands out and is clear and concise. So make sure that it's visually appealing, little to no empty white space on the resume. And that can just be a matter of spending an hour formatting it and making sure that all of the spacing is correct for the dates. And again, just make sure that it's really easy to follow and in chronological order, however you want. I don't want to say there's a right or wrong way, but this does help to make it easier to read. At this point in your career, I would recommend just trying to keep it to one page if possible. Of course, as you progress in your career and gain more experience, you might have to move on to 2 pages, but I think 1 page is very sufficient for students and recent graduates. And then again, I mentioned this before, but don't submit it as a Word document. A PDF is always best, only because there is nothing worse than submitting it as a Word document and it comes in all jumbled through the applicant tracking system. And something I get asked a lot is, should I put a picture on my resume? I am of the personal opinion that I don't think you need a photo unless you're applying for some sort of on-air broadcasting position where your face will be seen at all times. But my personal opinion is you don't need to submit a photo unless you want to, or you can have a photo on your LinkedIn account and then include your LinkedIn account on your resume. Some interview tips, and again, this is just coming from years of interviewing people all day long. When we start the interview, my main goal is to really see, can you carry a conversation? Do you feel confident in talking about yourself? And so one thing that I always like to share is work on an elevator pitch. So when a recruiter or the hiring manager says, tell me about yourself, you have kind of a 30 to 60 second spiel that you can go into that really highlights who you are, what you do, and what you're looking to do. So I would recommend just maybe looking up online, what is an elevator pitch, and just kind of working on that. So you have, a little blurb that you can just jump right in and it's catching, and the manager will be intrigued to kind of ask questions based off of your elevator pitch. But it really is just a chance for you to introduce yourself and say a little bit about what it is that you do and what you're looking to do. Look the part, even if on video. Always, make sure that you're dressed appropriately, like put on a little blazer like I've got on here today, even if you're wearing leggings on the bottom. But even in video, I think it is important to make sure that you look presentable. And of course, if you're going in for an in-person interview, make sure you dress the part. Our office is technically business casual, but I would always recommend for an interview that you take a step above and wear, a suit or a nice dress. Work appropriate clothing, no jeans, no t-shirts or anything like that. And always ask, if you do get invited for an on-site interview, feel free to ask us what we would recommend wearing. It may seem silly again, but definitely adds to just looking the part and being confident in your interview. One of the biggest things that I see happen during the interview process is someone that doesn't do their research on our organization. It's clear that they haven't even Googled what we do. So just make sure that you do your research. And I know a lot of people are familiar with the Saints and Pelicans, but we also have some other businesses in our portfolio. So I would urge you to research Mrs. Benson's ownership and all of the businesses that she is a part of. But make sure you do your research on, the exact department that you're interviewing with. Get on LinkedIn, look up who's interviewing you, maybe look at their background, see where they went to school, where they have worked previously. And that can kind of help you develop questions for you to ask your interviewer. Because my opinion is an interview is a two-way street. Yes, we're interviewing you and looking for a certain set of skills, but you're also interviewing us as an organization and making sure that you want to work with us. So if you, don't have questions for us at the end of the interview, that's always a red flag to me. So just make sure that you take some time and prepare some questions for your interviewer. My recommendation is to always ask open-ended questions like, what has made the past associate successful? Or, tell me about the career path of the most recent associate in this position. Or, what does the team like to do together to ensure that they have a good working relationship? Things like that, rather than questions like, what are the office hours of this position? Or what's the rate of pay? Those can kind of silo you into a box of, well, they aren't thinking creatively, or maybe they didn't do their research about us and they're really not interested in the position. So again, I would urge you to prepare questions like that are open-ended and that really segue into a good conversation, and that can kind of carry the conversation forward. And that is everything that I've got to offer about my personal recommendations for the program, interview, resume tips, and I will check the chat box here, but feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like. Send me an email, keep in touch, send me your resume directly so I can have that, and just feel free to keep in touch or send any questions after we get off the call today. Jennifer, I don't know if you want me to just open up the chat here or have people come off mute.
Yes, we invite any questions at this time from the group. Thank you.
Anyone has questions about specific? Yeah, absolutely.
So in an interview, when you're asking questions, like how many is too many to ask an interviewer?
That's a great question. I think it kind of depends on who your interviewer is. If they are very straightforward with the questions that they're asking, I would suggest waiting until the end and having anywhere between 3 and 5 questions. Or if the person is more of a natural conversationist and you feel comfortable asking questions along the way, then I would recommend doing it that way, and then maybe having 1 or 2 extra questions at the end. So I think personally, when I've gone on interviews, I will have about 10 questions prepared and then kind of gauge which ones I'm going to ask based on how the actual interview went. But I would say a safe number at the end is about 3 to 5.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can y'all hear me? I'm not sure if you're muted.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I am a senior, but I'm graduating in December, and I saw the application opens in March. So do you suggest that I apply for the in March, or wait until next year to apply? Because I know y'all said y'all focus on graduate students.
Yeah, so we do focus on graduating seniors that are finishing up in May. But that being said, if you are by chance doing remote school for the rest of the year, I would urge you to apply this March. But if not, and you will be finishing in December, I would recommend waiting till the following year to apply. And sometimes we do have associate positions that open in December or January, mostly with our inside sales associate group. Because they tend to have people getting promoted mid-year, which is awesome, but then it opens up a couple of positions usually around December or January. So if you're interested in inside sales, full-time until this December, I would suggest waiting until the following year. Hopefully that made sense.
It did, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, I have a question. I don't know if y'all can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the OPT. It's whenever international students are allowed to work on the country with a student visa. And
yes,
I just wanted to know if you guys are open to that kind of situation, or even if you guys sponsor students after the OPT expires.
So we have not in the past with our associate program, but I don't want to say that we wouldn't in the future. So if that is your situation, I would just write in your cover letter a little something about that so we can look into that further. So like I said, we haven't done that in the past, but that doesn't mean that we're not open to it in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question real quick.
Sure.
I've been to the industry that y'all have, and how you just explained the different roles that y'all have. When we interview with you, are we gonna be interviewing for a certain role, or would we just be doing it for the whole associate program?
Yes, so you would apply to one position specifically. So if you wanted to explore the social media associate program, you would apply specifically on the Saints and Pelicans website to the social media associate program, and then you would be interviewing only for that position, not as a whole.
Yes, ma'am. Can you sign up for more than one, or like interview for more than one?
To as many as you want. My personal suggestion is that you pick something that you're really interested in and that kind of matches your background and experience and apply to that. Traditionally, if I see someone that has applied to, you know, a data analytics position and a marketing position, I tend to question where their passions really lie. So my suggestion would be to pick maybe 2 to 3 that really focus on what your skills are and what your interests are, and apply to those, and really refine your resume and your cover letter so that you have a better chance at those positions.
Yes, ma'am.
I have another question. I'm
Sure.
sorry. I just like
No,
remembered.
don't apologize. That's what I'm here
So,
for.
I also applied to you all's mentorships. I'm not sure if you will know the answer to this question, but I did apply to you all's mentorship for this year, and I wanted to know if that's like a direct correlation to I'm sorry, I like lost my train of thought. That's a direct correlation to applying for the actual job at the Saints and Pelicans.
So they're totally separate. I
Okay.
might let Courtney touch on this a little bit since she oversees the mentorship program, but they are separate. So even if you are part of the mentorship program, you still would need to go through the application process for any associate position or full-time position. And the direct correlation there might be that your mentor kind of helps coach you through the application process, or maybe helps you network or gives you some pointers to network. But again, they are 2 separate programs. So Courtney, I don't know if you have anything else that you want to add on that.
Yeah, I'll
I guess-
echo Lindley. It is not correlated. It is just an avenue, an opportunity for you all students to be able to know our name. So I'll pick on Sean here. Sean was one of our mentees last semester. And so knowing him, and, you know, hopefully he has, you know, I know his name. So if there is something that he's interested in, obviously I will speak out on his behalf and let Lindley know that he's gone through that program. So we have picked our mentorship people this semester. So continue to do so. You know, you said you were here next semester. Please apply again and reach out to us now that you have my contact information and Lindley's and Jennifer's. Please just stay in contact. We want as many students as we can involved with this. So not correlated, just different opportunities for everybody.
Okay, thank you. I guess I phrased my question wrong. I was trying to see if the in the mentorship, if they will be working closely with you all.
Yeah, so the mentorship program is similar in the sense of they get a mentor. There's 6 mentees and 6 mentors. And so it is just a call, 1 call a week. It's 30-minute calls, and it's just really to refine your resume, refine your cover letter. That's what the mentorship is more about.
Gotcha.
And then the associate program is truly full-time here in the office, really one of us, a part of our team. So a little bit different, just, you know, a 30-minute call, building a relationship with a mentor here in the Saints and Pelicans staff. And then the associate programs truly here every day, a part of our team. Does that answer it maybe a little bit better?
Yeah, it does. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Yeah.
I had another quick question too.
Sure.
When in the process, when you know that you would get the thing for the relocation, do y'all like help with that, or is that all on us to just do that?
We don't currently offer any relocation assistance in the terms of dollar amounts. But we do have a roommate program for all of our associates. So because we do accept people from all across the country, we can connect you with other associates that are moving here to see if there might be a good roommate match. And hopefully we would have some sort of discount to offer you with local apartment complexes. It's still in the works for this upcoming year, but hopefully we'll have something to provide to you to kind of help ease the transition into New Orleans, since we don't offer a relocation budget.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Sure.
So it looked like in the chat there was a question about salary. I know
Yeah.
that probably depends on experience as well as the role is, but what the range would be like for an associate program position.
Yeah, so most of our associate positions start at $10 an hour. We do look to increase that hopefully for this year as well. And then with the inside sales position, that also earns commission. So you are earning a percentage of every ticket sold. Again, there are opportunities for overtime, especially if you're working games, and then a couple of other benefits that we offer. We offer medical insurance, and then we do offer lunch every day in our cafeteria. So I know it's not a monetary piece, but it does help some of our associates save because we do cover the cost of lunch every day in the office.
Can y'all hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay,
Yes.
I have a quick question. I have a quick question about like relocation. So
Yeah.
I mean, usually I graduate in December, so I'll be moving back to my hometown. So I'll probably apply like in 2023.
Okay.
But when it comes to like relocation, if someone was to live like an hour or an hour 30 minutes away, would you still recommend relocation, or would transportation be an option as well?
So I think that depends on your personal preference. To me, an hour commute is kind of a long way. And again, we do not offer any remote options at this time. So all of the positions are in person in the office. So if you would want to commute an hour one way, that would be up to you. You could listen to some great podcasts or audiobooks on your commute, but for me personally, I hate driving, and so that might be a little much. So I might recommend in that case that you look to relocate to the area. But again, it's totally personal preference of what you're comfortable with and what you'd like to do.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Okay.
And I will just remind you all to take down my email address. This is what I do all day, every day, is talk to candidates, and I love it. So please feel free to reach out and ask any other questions after this call, or connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like.
So I was going to ask what, since you do review so many of these applications, what are the things that stand out? What is that something that makes you pull that resume to the top of the pile?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, like I mentioned, that questionnaire section that we have on the application, it has like 3 or 4 questions. The first is like, are you 18? Or are you eligible to work in the US? And then there's this open text box that says, why do you want to work here? Or what would make you stand out in this position? And that's truly what I look at first. And that is what makes me pull a resume to the side and make sure to go back and review it. So that's the first thing that I would recommend doing, and try to be creative with that. Like I said, if you have some sort of experience that ties you to our organization, or if you have a story to tell about, well, I was a student athlete and this is my passion, and here's why, that is something that will catch my eye. And then the second thing that I look for is a really clear, concise resume that is really easy to read. And I know that sounds totally vague and not that exciting, but that is truly what stands out to me is, can I read the resume really quickly? Can I figure out what they do, what they're looking for? And then also including a cover letter. You would be surprised how many people don't include a cover letter for any application. And so including all of those things, a complete application really does stand out to me. And in your cover letter, I look that it is geared specifically to our organization. So not just a blanket cover letter that says, "Dear Sir or Madam." Take the time to look on LinkedIn, see who the hiring manager is, or address it to me. But just making sure that you aren't just including, a sample cover letter, making sure that it is personable to our position, and include, a story about yourself or a story about your experience and how it ties into our open position. So I think a couple of things: a clear, complete application, a clear, concise resume, and a cover letter that is not just a sample cover letter. That's really what stands out to me.
Okay, what are some great ways for students who, it sounds like we have some students on this call who have a little bit more time in school, to be gathering the experience and exposure they need to be a strong applicant for these positions?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And a lot of people ask this, just about getting into the sports industry as a whole. And my advice is always take any position that you can get. So whether that is, working at your school's box office, selling tickets for sporting events there, or working part-time at a restaurant, interacting with customers and getting customer service skills, take any position that you can get, even if it's a volunteer position, a paid position, part-time, full-time. Really just try and get some things on your resume that will help you build skills in what we're looking for. So again, if your goal would to be taking the inside sales position, again, working at a restaurant, building customer service skills, or selling tickets, or doing charitable work, selling tickets for sporting events, anything like that. Just get some sort of experience on your resume.
And what about that applicant's social media presence? Is that something you guys research or review after you've received the application and maybe before the interview?
That is a really good question, and definitely something that's on the forefront of our hiring process. We don't currently do any sort of background check on social media of our applicants, but I will say that specifically for like the social media positions, of course, we would go check out your page, see what kind of content you're posting, and see if it's kind of in line with our brand. But we do not do any sort of background check on social media. Personally, sometimes I'll look at people's LinkedIn and maybe Google the person, but it can't be used in our hiring decision whatsoever. So we don't do any sort of background check there. But of course, my advice will always be to be mindful of what you're posting and try to make it in line with what brand you're applying to, whether it's us or another company. Just be mindful of what you're posting and don't, of course, post anything profane or, if you don't want your grandma to see it, don't post it.
I'm sorry, I have another question.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so when it comes to experience, would you recommend like a certain amount of experience? I don't know if I'm really like wording the question right, but all right, so like on your resume, if you have like one bullet point of experience, would that be enough, or would you recommend to have more? Because I don't know.
Yeah, I think it depends. Yeah, I think it depends on the person and what you're applying for. Obviously, as a college student and going to be a recent graduate, we understand that you haven't had ample time to really work. But if you've only had one job, my advice would be to have maybe 3 or 4 bullet points underneath that, just explaining what you did, how you did it, and what the purpose was of that. So if your job was to, let's say, sell tickets at a sporting event, you were a ticket seller, elaborate on that underneath that experience and say, I provided excellent customer service while selling tickets to ensure that customers had a great time at our game. Say I organized and counted money at the end of each shift to ensure that we were in compliance with our sales. Just kind of elaborate on what the responsibilities were more than just I sold tickets. So that's my piece of advice. I don't think there's a certain number of jobs or experiences that we look for. We're more looking at what the quality is of those positions over the quantity of positions that you've held. Hopefully that answered the question.
it did. And so like just in the general like sports industry,
Mhm.
could you also answer like what do you think the amount of experience that like just the sports industry itself looks for?
Yeah, and again, I think that really goes back to each position individually. So if you're applying for an internship or maybe a coordinator level position, that would be looking for like 1 to 3 years of experience. And so whether that is one job or whether that's 3 jobs, we're not necessarily looking at the number of positions that you've held, but more or less like what you've been doing in those years of experience. And so I don't want to give you an exact number of jobs that you should have, but more so just developing what you've already done and kind of elaborating on that. So when, traditionally, like I said, a coordinator would be 1 to 3 years of experience, and then a manager level would be more like 5 years of experience. A director would be more like 7 to 10 years of experience. So those are just some general guidelines. But again, I would say more quality over quantity when it comes to what you're putting on your resume.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
For like the open text box and also on your resume, do you think like there's ever putting too much?
Box on our application will limit the number of characters that you enter, so it does cut you off at some point. And then in terms of resume, I think if you're putting like a personal statement or an objective at the top of your resume, I would keep it to 1 to 2 sentences max. I do think there is such a thing as too much on a resume. Like I have said a couple of times, clear, concise, make it easy to read. For each job that you're listing, my opinion is that like 3 to 6 bullet points about what you did is appropriate. Usually you can convey, exactly what it is that you've done in that amount of bullet points. And then maybe for volunteer experience, or if you're part of a sports team, maybe just 1 bullet point underneath that is appropriate. But I do think there is such a thing as too much text on a resume. So I suggest keeping it to 1 page and just a couple of bullet points under each job that you've held.
Yes, ma'am.
How important are references? Is that something you guys check out?
Yes, that's a great question. So we don't require references up front in the resume process, but if we do get to that final stage of the interview process, which I mentioned is that 3rd round, maybe a call with the vice president of the department, at that point, we would typically ask you to send over maybe 2 to 3 names of people that we could call and just talk to them about your work experience, your work ethic, what it's like to work with you on a team. So we definitely do check references. And it does play a pretty important part in that. We are obviously looking for no red flags. We want to make sure that the person that you provided as a reference has great things to say about working with you. So make sure that, you do have references lined up before the application process starts, or before the interview process starts, I should say. And of course, make sure that you always check with your references before providing their name and contact information to us so that we can give them a call.
And this is a twofold question, but is there an opportunity for students to share a portfolio? Maybe it's a digital portfolio or a website that showcases their work. And then say they were to get an interview, what do you expect to see for a candidate when it comes to following up?
That's great questions. So the portfolio piece or the digital portfolio, I always recommend including that link on your resume. If you are someone that has a digital portfolio, that is the easiest way to make sure that it does get submitted to us. For positions like our social media illustrator or coordinator, where we ask for a portfolio, we give explicit instructions in the job description as to where to put that. So that's kind of like a little test that we do as well. So you'll see in the job description for that one, it will say, please include the link to your portfolio in the questionnaire section, that open text box. So we're kind of double checking to make sure you follow the instructions and that we get the link. But my recommendation would be to also include that on your resume. And then in terms of follow-up, I think it's always appropriate to send an email after you've had an interview, thanking the interviewer for their time, and asking what the next steps will be if they didn't cover that with you in the phone interview. I think, I like to receive a thank you note right after the phone call, but I don't mind if someone reaches out to me maybe 3 or 4 days later asking if there's an update. And again, just depending on what the person that's interviewing you gave you in terms of a timeline. So if they said, I should be following up with you by the end of the week, and it gets to be, Monday of the following week, I think that's appropriate to send a follow-up. But if they said, it's going to be 3 weeks before I get back to you with next steps, I would maybe just check in 2 weeks after and just say, thanks again for your time. Really enjoyed hearing about the position and look forward to what the next steps might be. But sometimes we don't have an update. So kind of a long-winded answer there to say that I don't think it hurts to follow up, but be mindful of what the person told you in terms of next steps and timeline. Thanks for having me. And
Awesome.
hopefully I'll see
Thank
some
you.
of you in our associate program.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you for your time.